All right, so I'm here with my bracket. I feel like President Obama right now, and you're seeing my creation. But to start on the top left with the East region, I do see Duke coming out of that region. I think that a healthy Duke team, well, healthy at least in terms of the four outstanding freshmen being healthy. Obviously, Marquise Bolden is still a question mark, although we may see him back. But I think Duke kind of steamrolls through this region. We're going to see Duke get in pretty easily into the Sweet 16, but I think that game with Virginia Tech is going to be really tough, and it'll be cool to see Justin Robinson healthy for Virginia Tech and Zion healthy, obviously, for Duke, because we did not see that in their first meeting, where the Hokies did come out on top of Duke. But I don't think that Duke loses to them twice. I think that they'll advance against Michigan State and a really tough Big Ten tournament champion Michigan State team with Cassius Winston, Matt McQuaid, a lot of really great talent. I think Duke will come out of that region. And this top region, I don't really see any of the lower seeds. I don't see any Cinderella candidates out here. I know there are some people that are really high on Yale, but I think that LSU is a pretty good team. But I could see Maryland making a run. I think they've had a pretty up and down season, but they do have the talent with Cowan Jr. and Fernando to do something. And to go down to the West region, I think for one of my bigger sleepers is Murray State. I think Murray State with John Morant is really good, and you kind of see guys like Morant take over games, and I can see him putting up 35, 40 points on Marquette and getting one of those classic 12 over 5 upsets. And I think my favorite game of the Sweet 16 is Gonzaga versus Florida State. You saw Florida State beat Virginia in the ACC tournament, and I think they're going to give them a run for their money. I see that being a one-possession game, and in a lot of my brackets, I do have Florida State coming out victorious, but I do have Gonzaga in this moving on to the Elite Eight, where I think they'll ultimately be taken down by Texas Tech. Duke saw Texas Tech in December at Madison Square Garden, and I think aside from Virginia, I think this is the best defensive team that I personally have seen all season. And they do have that signature scorer with Jarrett Culver. Culver is one of the better players in the country, and I think that's a perfect recipe to make a really deep run in March. And I think Duke will handle Texas Tech as they did in that first matchup, and Duke will eventually advance that national championship game. And to move over to the right side of my bracket, I think the top part of the South bracket is pretty chalk. Virginia's really good, and I think that Virginia will have no problem at least getting to the Elite Eight. And I do see it's funny, I see Villanova making the Elite Eight, but I could also see them losing the first round. That St. Mary's matchup is not easy, and I think that Villanova really got a poor draw. I mean, they were the Big East regular season champions and the Big East tournament champions. They still got a 6 seed below Marquette, who was a 5 seed in that same conference. And I do think that Villanova goes on a run. National champions last year, and they lost basically their entire starting lineup. But Eric Paschal and Phil Booth are two really good upperclassmen, and they have some younger talent that's shown flashes, such as Gillespie, Jermaine Samuels. And I do think that they'll make it to that Elite Eight weekend. And then looking down at the Midwest, I think we're going to get a UNC Kentucky rematch. I think that's probably the Elite Eight matchup I'm most confident in. Those are two really good teams. I think they're actually two of the 4 best teams in the country, along with Duke and UVA for me. And I think that will be just an absolutely titanic matchup in the Elite Eight. And one team to look out for, though, is Seton Hall. Seton Hall beat Kentucky at Madison Square Garden earlier this season, and with Miles Powell, who's a really great guard, I could see them pulling off that pretty unbelievable upset where a 2 seed does not make it to the Sweet 16. And in my championship game, I think Duke gets it. I think Duke and Virginia are the top two teams. We've seen Duke beat Virginia twice, and I think Duke is just the more complete team, but I think it'll be a really, really close game, as we saw, and I think it'll come down to shooting. We saw Duke actually had its best shooting night of the season against Virginia when they traveled to Charlottesville. I think Duke made like 50% of their threes, and if Duke can even shoot 35+% from beyond the arc, which is a struggle for this team, as we've seen throughout the season. But if Duke can knock down some shots against UVA, I think that they will emerge victorious and bring home their 6th NCAA title.